Good evening all. So it's a pleasure for us for astronauts to share the experience. I'm sorry to tell you that I won't be able to take you to space in real today. I can put you in weightlessness for a fraction of a second if you want. I have a trick. It's not a trick actually. If you jump, the time your feet are off the ground, you are exactly in the same weightlessness state as astronaut in space. We are just free falling in space, and that's what you do when you jump off the ground. But I hope I will answer most of your questions, and of course we have about 1 hour and a half, is that correct? And so we will have plenty of time also for questions, because I'm sure I won't be able to answer all your questions in less than 1 hour. So I flew 3 times as a mission specialist on Atlantis on the first mission to study the atmosphere. So what is particular to this mission is we were flying upside down the whole time, most of the time, for all the instruments in the cargo bay of the Space Shuttle Atlantis to point to the atmosphere. So the 2 big overhead windows on top of the cockpit were facing the Earth, and that's probably the best mission I had in terms of Earth viewing, because we were on an orbit, as you see on the crew patch, that was quite inclinated above the equator plane. My second mission, so this one was a mission for Earth, for atmosphere research. Thanks. The second mission was to resupply the Russian space station Mir. It was during the initial partnership between the US and Russia to learn how to manage a space station. And I was part of the 6th mission. So there has been 9 missions of the space shuttle to dock to the Russian space station Mir. I was on the 6th one, and we brought and exchanged 4 tons of equipment on this mission. And so that was a mission for humans, because I can tell you we called from the ground our colleagues in space before we went, and they told us how eager they were to receive us and to receive the food, the equipment, the payload. I mean, the first payload we exchanged, it's about a 200 kilograms equipment called Electron. It converts urine into oxygen, basically. Purification of urine, then electrolysis, and when you put electricity through water, you get oxygen. And also hydrogen, which is vented overboard, but now we have a system to use this hydrogen to combine with carbon dioxide and then to free again oxygen. But so this is a preliminary program using the Russian space station Mir before the new space station, which is the current one, the ISS, which is in orbit now with the European astronaut André Kuipers from Holland. And the third mission for science was to repair the Hubble Space Telescope. It's a program, the Space Telescope Hubble is the first real telescope in space. It's a joint program between NASA and ESA, and in ESA, UK had a big part in this program, especially the 2 big solar arrays, magnificent solar arrays, were provided by the UK. So if I am here to talk to you, I've been in space, and I've been in space because there has been an expansion of the human space flight since the initial competition between the Russians and the Americans more than 40 years ago, or it was 50 years ago. So I would like you to hear 2 famous speeches from John Kennedy when he launched the Apollo program. Can we get the light? Yeah, it's from here actually. So here and here. No?
That one works best. Like that.
Yes, very good.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space.
So the President of the United States gives 2 reasons to go to the moon. It will be very impressive. This is what the Chinese are doing now with their human spaceflight program. and it will be very important for the future exploration of space. And he was right, because a lot of technologies and know-how and management skills for big complex programs were invented with the Apollo program. So this is in May 61, before even the first US astronaut flew in space. But the most famous speech is the second one I want you to hear now.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others do.
We choose to go to the moon not because it's easy, but because it is hard. And this is a lesson for all of us in everything we do in life. I mean, if we choose to do only things that are easy, we will never be able to know what we are able to do at the limit of our capabilities. And when the US launches the Apollo program, they start from scratch. They don't have a flying rocket yet. They have not built any capsule, not any suit, nothing. They start from scratch in 61, and 8 years later, they land on the moon. And a few months later, they even have a jeep on the moon. So when you succeed achieving a goal that is so hard that you're not even sure you will reach that goal when you start, you have to invent, to develop, to explore. And we don't know in advance how we will solve problems, but this is the way you demonstrate to other space power your know-how. So the best of our energies and skills, the best way to measure what you are able to do in life is to set yourself sometimes some goals that are hard to achieve. Now, some statistics. Before some statistics, I want to show you this curve. It's very famous in the US. In dark blue, it's the NASA budget. A peak here in 1964, because most of it is used for the Apollo program, as a function of time. And here you have the scale. But in green, purple, and blue, you have the number of PhD that has been delivered at the same time as a function of time. And you see those the graph is also in the shape of a hill like this. It shows how the Apollo program attracted young people to choose science at school and motivated them to push to the top level, which is the PhD. And all those people here, all those PhDs in physical science, engineering, math science, are those who made the aerospace industry of the US today. Now they are more or less retiring now. But the aerospace industry in the US came from all those people who were fascinated by the Apollo program. When you have a strong program that is very attractive because it touches the dream, and also because it's going to the unknown, and everybody wants to participate to the unknown. If I give you a ticket to go to space, some of you are ready to go even without training, I'm sure. So this is why we need programs like this to attract, motivate people, and not only motivate people, but also it's a factor of identity. A population, a country which manages to and succeed in such program is proud. And like in Europe, you know, we have Airbus, we have Ariane, and I can tell you all Europeans are proud of our Ariane program and our Airbus program. But we lack now of new big programs like this. The next one will be return samples from Mars, human mission to Mars, probably in 20, 30 years from now. It will happen, but there is not the competition to accelerate the budgets, unfortunately. So now, some statistics. As of today, we are about 520 humans, men and women, to have been in space. spaceflight is very difficult. It's very complex, as you heard from the speech from Kennedy. And just to give you an example, on the space shuttle, we have, I just give you this example. In the cockpit, we have more than 1,000 switches. And the first time you go in the simulator, you start training as a new astronaut, you look at all the switches and you think, that's not for me, I will never manage to do this. But when you want, you can. And all of you, I'm sure, if you want to go to space and we tell you to go to space, you have to learn all those 1,000 switches, you will do it. But the most difficult part is not for the astronaut to learn about the switches, because I told you, you can do this. It's for the engineers to put together the engines which are capable to give us the speed of 28,000 kilometers per hour in just 8.5 minutes. For this, we need the thrust. Here, it's about 3,000 tons for a total weight of 2,000 tons. The solid propellant, solid rocket boosters, SRBs, consume 10 tons of solid fuel per second. And through the main engines that are just below the rudder here, you don't see the plume because it's purely water vapor. It's 1 ton of liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen that are around minus 200 degrees Celsius. And the pumps that are sucking the liquid hydrogen and oxygen from the external tank to those engines would empty a regular pool in 15 seconds, just to give you an idea. This is the hard part of space flight. This is to put together, to invent, build, test, qualify, certify, and operate engines capable of giving you this velocity. If you don't reach that velocity, that horizontally in space, with the attraction of the Earth, you fall on a steeper trajectory, you touch the atmosphere, and you stay in space only a few minutes. This is what they do with suborbital flights within few months or few years. But with a 20,000 kilometers per hour speed, as you fall, attracted by the Earth, you follow a trajectory which has the same curvature as the Earth itself. And you never reach any obstacle, and you stay there forever. So after 8.5 minutes, we shut off the engines. I mean, these last only 2 minutes. The main engines, 8.5 minutes. We shut off the engines forever, and we are in orbit forever. To come back, we need to do something. We need to ignite very small engines just for a few minutes to reduce just a bit this velocity. And instead of going around the Earth, missing the Earth, we go slightly steeper, we touch the atmosphere, and within half an hour, we are back on the ground. So let's go through a launch now. These are the 3 main engines: oxygen, hydrogen. One ton per second. So we reach the speed of sound after 1 minute, 5 times the speed of sound after 2 minutes. At that time, the big solid rocket boosters are empty, so they separate from the vehicle. We will see it. And after 8.5 minutes, we are about 25 times the speed of sound. And we are about 2 minutes and 15 seconds into the flight at this point. We reach an acceleration maximum of 3G. It's not enormous compared to fighter pilots who experience 8, 9 Gs in this axis, but we feel 3G in this axis. From forward, we are pressed on our back, so we don't lose vision due to the blood going to the feet like pilots when they do high combat, high turn, high G combats. maneuvers, but we feel very compressed in the seat. So it's not easy to move and to reach switches, to take notes, but we train for that. So I will show you now essentially pictures about the living and working in space. The living, you'll see it's essentially camping, except that it's bad weather outside, so we cannot go out the tent. But eating, sleeping, personal hygiene is like in a camping trip. And the work is essentially operations. You know, astronauts are selected among a wide range of professions. Astronauts were formerly combat diver, like the first commander of the space station was a Navy SEAL. Some were scuba diver, helicopter pilot, fighter pilot, submarine captains. We have scientists from medicine, biology, volcanology, oceanography, physiology. A Japanese woman was a cardiac surgeon. So we have operators, scientists, and also engineers, specialists in astronautics, propulsion, structure, electronics, etc. But once you are selected as an astronaut, you are not asked to do the same job you were practicing before. We are all trained to do the same thing, which is to operate complex machines. And operating complex machines can be the orbiter itself, the spaceship, the robotic arm, the spacesuit, to fix the satellites. So you can have a medical doctor doing a spacewalk. You can have a cardiac surgeon flying the robotic arm. So the reason why we have such a wide range of professions is because in space we touch all kinds of disciplines, especially in the research we do. And it's interesting to have this mix of expertise on board. The challenge for the living on board is weightlessness. You will see we lose a lot of objects the first few days in space on the first flight. After we learn. We learn from mistakes, obviously. But the first few days we lose a lot of objects, and we are frustrated because we lose a lot of time looking for things. And the challenge for work is the fact that mistakes are not allowed, and that's why we train hard in simulators. And we have not been able to converge to a unique language and unique system of units. The Russians had committed that English would be the official language in space, and the US, the Japanese, and the Canadian had committed at the initial agreement on the space station that the units would all be metrics. The Canadian and the Japanese converted their space industry into metrics, but the US never managed to do it. So on the space station, you have everybody using metric system except the US module, where you still have pound per square inch for pressures, and you still have inches and feet for distance. So you have two toolboxes, set of toolboxes in space. You have a wrench in 1/16 of inch and wrenches in millimeters. And as far as language, the first time US astronaut came to Star City near Moscow to train on the Russian systems, the lectures were in Russian. So the NASA said, you signed that would be English. In space, yes, but if you come if you come to our training center, it's still in Russian. So as of today, all astronauts from all the partners of the International Space Station, Canadian, Japanese, Europeans, Russians, and US, they all speak at least those two languages. The two official languages on board the International Space Station are English and Russians. And all the documents are in both languages. And for units, I told you, we have both toolboxes, types of tools. How do we succeed to work in space? By working as a team and controlling fear. I put this because many people ask the astronaut, are you afraid or do you feel the fear? So I will answer right now this question. What is fear? For me, fear is facing the unknown. It's when you don't know why you are where you are and what's going to happen. But when we go to space, it has been at least a year since we know it. and since we started training. And in our mind, we know in advance that that day, at that time of the day, my role will be to sit on that seat and to do that task. And when it happens, it's normal in my life because I have programmed myself for that. So if I put you tomorrow on top of a rocket, you have good reasons to be afraid because you know nothing. But when you train, then in your life, you prepare yourself to do this at that time. So even though you still feel the stress of the complexity of the task and the responsibility, like the day before launch on my third flight, Dan Goldin, the administrator of NASA, came to visit our crew in quarantine, and he told me, and you, Billy Bob, that was my nickname, because at NASA, Jean-François is very hard to say. So they asked me if I had a nickname, and my twin brother and I, since we are very young, since we saw Billy as a kid, we were 8 or 9 years old, we started calling each other Billy. So I told my crewmates, you know, you can call me Billy, I'm used to it. And they say, okay, Billy, but we are in Texas, so we need to add Bob. It's better in Texas. So my name tag is Billy Bob. So Dan Goldie told me, and you, Billy Bob, I count on you to capture the telescope because we just lost a space probe on Mars. And we need to, brighten the image of NASA with this repair of the Hubble Space Telescope. So don't forget that you'll have $6 billion in your hand when you capture the Hubble Space Telescope. So how do you control fear? By knowing where you go and why you go. And this is what we do when we go in space. We know why. Our mission is to go and fix the Hubble Space Telescope. This is very clear in our mind. And we don't do our job well just to please the commander. We just want to succeed. All astronauts in space, of course, there is a captain. He has the responsibility as a captain of the ship. But we don't feel that we have a boss and we have to report to the boss. We all know our task. And our common objective is to fix the Hubble Space Telescope. Teamwork, so it continues what I was just saying. It's to have a clear goal. When everybody has the same goal in a team, it's a big unifying factor. We need to communicate and to be competent. So you have to demonstrate during training to your colleagues that you know very well your task. And you have to communicate. Communicate, I mean to listen to what the others are telling you and to have them listen to you when you want to say something. This is what we call active listening. You know, sometimes when you listen to somebody else, you wait until you hear something that you like and you don't listen to the rest. But you have to be generous when you listen to somebody. You have to, what is he telling me now? And in the simulator, we train with very bad scenarios that the instructors are injecting in the simulator via computers, of course, where we have a lot of, we have air leak, propellant leak, the flying stick doesn't respond anymore, we have electrical bus short, a fire on board, all that at the same time, and we have to survive. And if you are in charge of the electrical system and you do your thing, not caring about what the others are doing, one is trying to fix the propellant leak by closing valves, opening valves, one after the other. And if at the same time you open an electrical circuit just to solve your electrical problem, you may ruin the work your colleague is doing to try to fix the propellant leak. So you have to tell the others what you are doing, and this is really teamwork. Training, like John Young used to say, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. 80% of the time we spend in the simulator is working with malfunction scenarios. The instructors are not allowed to give us a scenario with no solution, but they can be nasty as bad as they want. And sometimes we have 8, 10 malfunctions at the same time. When we start training about 10 months, 1 year before flight, it happens sometimes that we die in the simulator. And I can tell you, we are not proud of ourselves. It happened once on my first flight, twice on my second flight, and once on my third flight, that early in the training, we didn't manage to find the solution. But the last month, 2 months before flight, as a crew, I can tell you, we are Superman. They can invent any scenario they want. We are better than anybody else to solve scenarios, and we survive. So each time we have a malfunction, the question first is, what is a malfunction? What are the impacts? And as soon as we have solved the malfunction, the next thing we think about is, what is the next worst failure that can happen to us based on all the previous failures we had so far? So we are failure-oriented, not mission failure, but equipment failure-oriented. It's like a good pilot, whether it's an aero club pilot, a commercial pilot, fighter pilot, a good pilot, when they pull full thrust at takeoff on the runway, in their mind, they must be prepared for engine failure at takeoff. If I have an engine failure, I will do this, this. They have to think, I'm sure I'm going to have an engine failure. I'm ready to do this, this, this. If they think, oh, I haven't been flying for a long time, I hope I won't have an engine failure. I hope I won't have an engine failure. If it happens, then they are off the runway. So you have to be failure-oriented in your training in order to be mission success-oriented in flight. So I used to tell the new guys, you know, if you feel a bit, if you want to be good in the simulator, you have to think this is your real life and the real mission at stake. If you think, oh, it's just a simulator, tonight I have my friends visiting home, let's go through the simulator, if we mess up, it's okay, tonight we have a good party. No, it doesn't work that way. And that's why I tell you, when we die in the simulator, virtually, we are not happy. And if you stress too much the day of launch on the real pad, in the real rocket, you are just thinking, if you want, it's just one more simulation and it goes very smooth. Because the simulator is very high fidelity and it's very close to reality. So in the cockpit, on the launch pad, the real day, even though some part of your brain is telling you, this is a real thing, I'm going to space for real, one part of your body is saying, it's exactly like in the simulator. I'm ready to do anything, whatever happens, we know what to do. Now let's talk about what it is to be in space. So after the big kick in the butt at takeoff, this is a picture of the North Sahara, here Oriental and Occidental Sahara, on north of Africa. And this picture is taken with a 50mm lens camera. So this is the same focal length as a human eye. So if you want to imagine what we see from space, looking at the window, you see the Earth like this. It's not a small ball far away like those who were on the moon looking at the Earth. It's a huge ball. It's essentially blue. Well, here it's not, the blue is not the dominant color, but just because it's north of Africa. But generally, it's really blue, as you will see on other pictures. The sky is black, and you think you are alone in the universe when you look at the Earth like this. You need to switch off all the lights in the cockpit to eventually see the blackness of space becoming white of stars, and it's marvelous. But if you don't prepare to adjust your eyes to darkness, it is just black, and you don't see any star. It's black, you have the moon, the sun, and the Earth, and that's it. And on the horizon, you see the thickness of the atmosphere is nothing. It's a thin like a cigarette paper, very thin. And that's why I wrote, life is fragile on Earth. But the Earth is beautiful. Those colors come from blooming of phytoplankton in the Arctic Ocean. And what makes Earth beautiful, it's life. If there was no life on Earth, no green, no vegetation, no animals, nothing, I think it would be like the moon, magnificent desolation, used to say Buzz Aldrin on the moon. And it's very moving to watch the Earth. We don't have much time on a short flight because we work 14, 16 hours a day. On a long duration flight, which is 6 months on board the space station, the weekends are more or less free. And most of the free time is spent by astronauts watching the Earth. I know some colleagues from Russia who have flown several times 6 months in space. They know the Earth by heart visually. You show them any picture of any place on Earth, taken from a satellite or from anywhere, and they will tell you where it is, what is the name. They recognize any feature of Earth. And this is my fantasy as an astronaut, to learn the Earth by heart. I know more than half by heart thanks to my first mission, but there are still some places that were covered with clouds that I couldn't see, like Glasgow. So 28,000 kilometers per hour is a velocity that makes us go around the Earth in 1 hour and a half. And in one day, there is 16 times 1 hour and a half. So we go around the Earth 16 times per day, and 1 hour and a half is spent, half of it, 45 minutes, flying over the part of the Earth illuminated by the sun where it is daylight, and the next 45 minutes, it's where it's night. So we see every 45 minutes, we see either the sunrise or the sunset. But we don't go to bed 16 times per day. And if the orbit is not coplanar with the equator, but if the plane of the orbit is closer to the poles, half of the orbit, 45 minutes, we fly over the north hemisphere where it's winter, for example, on my first flight. And the second half is the opposite season. So every 45 minutes, we see opposite seasons colors of the Earth, and that's quite nice. And the Earth is powerful. This is a Hurricane Florence on my first flight. This is a Sakurajima volcano erupting 3 days after my first launch in Japan. And this is a view of Japan, the Osaka Bay in the middle here. And I wanted to show you this picture because the gray color, the light gray colors you see here, like on the previous picture, by the way, like here. This is a color of concrete. So this is man-made huge cities. If man had not built cities with concrete bricks and macadam roads and streets, here the color would have been the same as here. So when you don't know where you are in space, you look at the window and you see big spot of light gray, you know it's concrete, it's a mega city. And this is where man has, its natural forces tend to put men and women live together, on huge cities. Like the Philippines also, and the same. And if we take binoculars, I can tell you with the naked eye, it's not obvious. We need to take magnifying lenses. We see places where we are not very clean on Earth, like this oil spill around this huge oil platform in the Persian Gulf. And here you have a view of Borneo. The very thin parallel lines you see on the left here are areas of deforestation, active deforestation. And when you take off the trees in the tropical places like Borneo, the next rain, tropical rain, will move all the sediments to the next river because the sediments are not retained anymore by the roots of the trees. And you have 80% of biodiversity dying here because taking off the forest. And the river here is saturated with sediments. And here, on many kilometers around, 80% of biodiversity in the ocean is dying too, due to excess of sediments. Here the river has a normal color, but these places were deforested a long time ago, so it has recovered since. But this is why we should not destroy forests without thinking twice first. Now, weightlessness. Weightlessness is the state of free fall. So I will tell you a paradox. We are weightless when the only force that applies to my body, or to an object, is weight. This object is currently subject to two forces. The weight, it is attracted by the Earth. It would like to go to the center of the Earth, but my hand is applying a force up to prevent the object to fall down. So there is two forces. If I take my hand off, it starts free falling, it is weightless. So if I jump, I will do it once, just once. I will jump like this without moving my arm, and you will see during the jump, the pen will slightly lift off my hand and move with me. So the two were just like this. That's what we do in space. We free fall continuously. Fortunately, still attracted by the Earth. the weight is almost the same up there, the weight force. If the Earth was not attracting, if the weight was not there anymore, with the velocity of 28,000 kilometers per hour, we would go in straight line to the infinite, the end of the universe. So weightlessness is the state where there is only weight. Remember this. Well, this is just for the picture. This is Marsha. Now, sleeping, camping, I told you. We even have pillows. They don't serve any purpose. I mean, if you remove the pillow, the head will be exactly at the same place. But some astronauts, they like to feel the pressure on the pillow like at home. So they use a strap to maintain it, behind the head, and it helps some of them. We use a no-rinse soap, no-rinse shampoo, and this is here, the no-rinse soap. It's written no rinse, body bath, pouch assembly. This is a technical term for no-rinse soap. No-rinse body bath pouch assembly. We use, we eat dehydrated food for 2/3 of the dishes, and 1/3 is pre-cooked dish. We just have to put in the oven. It's 80 degrees oven. It doesn't really cook, but it maintains warm the food. And but I would say 2/3 of the food is in this form. I have some example here. Well, it's the same kind of, it's dehydrated. We need to inject water, either cold or warm, wait for rehydration, and then it has the same taste and consistency as on Earth. And now the variety of dishes that are proposed to the astronauts is great, so there is no more complaint now. There used to be. In Russia, they had the same menu every week. So when you stay 1 month, and 2 have stayed 1 year, and 1 stayed 14 months without coming back. Every week, the same menu. Now it's quite, you have a large variety of dishes. And by the way, M&Ms here. The dust also is weightless, so we catch more easily dust in the eyes than on Earth. On Earth, the dust is on top of the furniture. And to clean your eyes, you just put a blob of warm water on your eyes. It's very comfortable. You can still breathe, talk, and it works very well. And it stays there. You have to trust your colleagues for long-duration flight to cut your hair. So some astronauts, they go to space completely shaved, hoping they won't have to ask their colleague to cut their hair, but if the flight is 6 months, it's still difficult. We are trained to take pictures like professionals. To give you an example of my first flight, 11 days, we took 8,000 pictures in 11 days and 200 hours of video. We exercise. We have a system to mimic, weightlifting. We cannot lift weight in space, of course, but we use bungees or strings, and we have also treadmill to run, and also a cycle ergometer like this. It's not so important on a short duration flight. I did my exercise every day on my first flight, only every other day on my second flight, and I was a very bad guy on my third. I didn't exercise at all because I realized on a 1 or 2 weeks space flight it's not really important. If you are in very good shape, in very good level of fitness, when you go up for the next 10, 15 days, you feel okay. But if your flight is longer than 3 or 4 weeks, it's very important to exercise. Otherwise, when you come back, you are too weak to do anything. And you feel like a larvae, unable to move or do anything. This is a potty, very famous. We have a checklist. We even have a checklist to learn how to use the potty. And everybody has his own funnel for urination. And the seat mimics a bit the seat we have on Earth, except that we replace gravity by suction, And to avoid all objects to be sucked inside, the hole is very small. It's 10 centimeter diameter. And to train to aim properly, on the ground, we have the same seat with a camera, and you look at your own bottom on a TV screen. And that's not a joke. This is real. The challenge in space, you know, the most complex tasks are spacewalking, robotics, fixing satellites, doing science. So we train a lot, and eventually it looks easy to us because we are familiar with all those complex tasks. But we don't spend really much time training on the logistics, where to put things, how to manage the trash. You know, this is a US trash bags here, water containers, food containers. And it is a challenge because we produce trash during the flight and we wait for a resupply ship to bring new food, new equipment, new tools. And how do you take things in the space station which is already full of trash? You have to make some initial space in the resupply ship so you can start getting rid of the trash. And eventually, when the resupply ship is totally empty of resources and full of trash, you separate the spaceship and it burns above the Pacific Ocean in the atmosphere. The resupply ship today are three types. The Russian Progress vehicle, 7 tons. The Japanese vehicle, it's 15 tons. And we have the ATV, Automated Transfer Vehicle, from Europe. It's a European spaceship. The third one lifted off 5 days ago and will dock tonight at 11:34, I think, UK time, tonight. It will dock automatically to the space station. All those resupply ships are automated, but the European one is the only one which is fully autonomous and can find its target, the space station, by itself. The other ones are exchanging data with the space station. And the European ship is more than 20 tons. And it docks with a precision of 1 centimeter on the Russian side. The Japanese resupply ship comes to proximity of the space station, stops, and the crew has to fly manually a robotic arm to capture the resupply ship and berth it softly on the US side. To go to space, you have to accept to be guinea pigs. So we don't give, but we rent our bodies to science. But it doesn't hurt, and you learn a lot about yourself, about your own body, so it's interesting. Here we were chewing cotton every morning to store saliva for people studying latent viruses. And of course, we do cardiovascular tests, skin temperature tests, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the mission. On long duration flight, I told you we have free time on weekends. So here it's just for the picture, they are reading books. Some astronauts who like music, they take instruments and they learn to play a new instrument when they are in space. There is few hundreds of DVDs, all kind of movies. But the number one attraction is looking at the Earth. We can take personal objects, as you can see. This is the most powerful Pokemon card, my son. Most of the time, among the personal objects, we have a family picture. And every night I was testing my brain with the Rubik's Cube. I'm a big fan of puzzles. I have 200 puzzles at home. I couldn't bring them, all of them, in space, but I think this one was a good one to take. Now, this was living in space. Now I will talk more about the work. So the obsession of the astronauts is to succeed. Our first fear is not to die, but to make a mistake or to miss a task and to not come back with a full successful mission. So on that day, on Christmas Day, which is, this picture was taken the 25th of December 1999, I just released the Hubble Space Telescope with a Canadian robotic arm. We asked the ground to test all the equipment because it was, of course, powered down. All the electrical current were shut down during the repair. And they told us that everything was working fine. So it was, for us, the big pride. The mission is not finished, we have to come back, but still at that point we were quite satisfied. This is a view of the cockpit, a lot of switches I told you, lot of paper checklist, now it's more electronic, and a lot of Velcro. The two prime tools in space are the gray tape and Velcro. You know, any light blue you see or white is Velcro. This is a view of my robotic workstation. On the left hand, I have a translation hand controller. On the right hand, a rotational hand controller. And by moving my two hands, each one having 3 degrees of freedom, I can move around my colleague outside like this, like on this picture. This is a robotic arm. So it has a shoulder and elbow, and here you see the wrist. At the tip of the wrist, I had put a foot restraint system, and one of my colleagues in a spacesuit has the feet attached to the foot restraint, and I move him around. So he tells me, Billy Bob, move me 2 feet into the telescope, give me 10 degrees pitch down, 20 degrees your left, and 5 degrees roll to the right. And I have to convert his instructions into actions on my control stick to put him exactly at the position and the orientation he needs to do his work. And this for 8 hours in a row. This is the work for fixing the Hubble Space Telescope. And for those of you who have seen Hubble 3D, how many have seen the movie Hubble 3D? You know, it's showing right now at the IMAX here in Glasgow. You have to go. I mean, this is the best experience you can have to be as close as possible to experience space yourself. It's a watch IMAX movie made by astronauts themselves in space, and the Hubble 3D movie is very similar to my mission, but this one was 10 years ago, and the movie is the last one that was in May 2009, 3 years ago. This is a view of Mir on my second space flight. It's a space station like a star, each module docked to a central node, as opposed to the current space station. This is inside. Elena Kondakova, she is the third and so far the last Russian female in space, and Eileen Collins, the first shuttle pilot, female shuttle pilot. And by the way, here, cognac. Forbidden, don't repeat. But the Russians, they have some way to have some alcohol going up without any trace on any paper. But well, we were 10 of us for 5 days for only half a liter of cognac, so it's okay. Huh? So this is a space station today, 110 meters long, 70 meters wide, and it's a partnership program between the US, the Russians, the Japanese, the Canadians, and the European Space Agency. And in the European Space Agency, only 10 member states, only 10 countries out of 18 are members of this program. As of today, the UK is not a contributing member state of the European Space Agency to this program, but it may come soon, I hope. But even if it doesn't happen, I'm sure Tim Peake will fly. You know, Tim Peake is a very bright ESA astronaut of British citizenship who is training, who is fully qualified now. He is currently training in Houston for spacewalking, and I hope he will have his flight soon. He needs your support. This is a list of experiments that are currently ongoing on the space station, performed by Andrei Kuipers, the ESA astronaut on board at this time. You see, we have human research, so it's medical research in neurology, cardiopulmonary, cognitive, immune system, etc. We have physics, fluid physics, combustion, material science, radiation, biology. And we have also some technological experiment, you know, testing new mechanism, new robotic system. I just want to show you, to tell you that we are busy up there. This is a symbolic picture. This orchid flower was grown from a seed that was produced in space. This is a symbol of the full life cycle taking place in space. We have not fecunded yet humans in space, but it should work. I don't see why it should not work. But we have fecunded, we dit fecunded, we say that? Comment on dit fécondé in English? To
fertilize.
We have fertilized batracians in space and birds, and it worked. So it should work for humans the day we go in space for a very, very long time. We will need to reproduce ourselves there. I told you astronauts are all convinced that our planet is a spaceship that needs protection, and we are all involved. Some are like André is ambassador for the WWF, and Frank de Winner from Belgium is ambassador of UNESCO. Personally, I patron two organizations, one in sustainable development in Normandy, and the other one is this association in French Polynesia, Temana o Temoana, which means the spirit of the ocean, which works to protect the ocean and to sensitize the kids to, as it's written here. More than 32,000 students from French Polynesia were participating to their program, and because it's hard to change the adults, but we can educate the young people to grow with the idea that the Earth is finite, it has limited resources, and we should manage it as a spaceship. Like on the space shuttle, I can tell you, we count each drop of water, each breath of oxygen we take, because we don't want to lack oxygen or water or food before the end of our missions. So this is why sometimes I go there. I mean, I've been twice, you know, to contribute to this program. Well, now we have to come back. So let's show you a short, very short video of the return on my second space flight. Free loading. Carlos is drinking. We are all drinking about 1.5 liters of water before coming back with a lot of salt, just to reconstruct the blood volume we lost. 25 times the speed of sound. This is what the pilot sees through the windshield. We call it head-up display. So Charlie is flying, and Eileen on the right seat is reading the instruments. It's a pure glider. Gear. Gear down at 80 feet. French tires, Michelin. From the time we slow down the orbital velocity by only few kilometers per hour, using small engines for a few minutes, until touchdown, it's only 1 hour and 5 minutes. So we are above Australia when we ignite the engines, about the opposite side of the Earth from the landing runway. And west of California, we start touching the atmosphere about 30 minutes after ignition of the deorbit burn. And then we are in the atmosphere for only half an hour. So we go from west of Los Angeles to Florida landing. We'll stop in less than 35 minutes. And this is where you see these red colors through the windscreen that you saw. So what's coming next? Within just few slides, you will hear more and more up. I will let you listen to this briefing about parabolic flight. We can produce weightlessness without going to space, but only for short periods of about 20 seconds. We call it parabolic flight. Parabolic flight consists of putting an aircraft in orbit. An aircraft in orbit, but the orbit is inside the atmosphere, so it requires special skills by the pilot to simulate it was like if it was vacuum, and this is what I show you now. We throw the aircraft like this in the air. We are free falling, the aircraft and everything inside, all together. And all the experiments you see on the side are similar to what we do in space, on board the space station, except here it lasts only 22 seconds. And we will do our first parabolic flight open to the public this fall. Few flights per year to demonstrate to the public this state of weightlessness. What we do also on board this aircraft is Moon and Mars gravity. By flying a parabola, which is not 0G but slightly flattened parabola, we can fly such that part of your weight you can still feel part of your weight. So on the Moon you feel 1/6 of your weight, and on Mars it's about 1/3. So we do Mars parabola, Moon parabola, and 0G. So this is a way to feel weightlessness without going to space. You don't have the black sky in daylight, you don't have the beautiful view of the Earth, but you feel weightlessness, and it's quite a memorable feeling. Now, a bit further, it's still a parabolic flight. You will hear more and more about what we call suborbital flight, like this European project. It consists of doing a parabola also in an aircraft, but instead of staying in the atmosphere, there will be a kick using a rocket engine to reach about 100 kilometers. But the velocity reached at the top will be 10 times smaller than what it takes to stay in orbit. So it's only about 3,000 kilometers per hour instead of 30,000 kilometers per hour. So after 3 minutes, you are back in the atmosphere. We call it suborbital flight. The ticket will cost 150,000 euro for one flight, for one parabola. But the passengers will feel, in short, all what you feel in a space flight. A big boost at takeoff, because for 1 or 2 minutes you have a big rocket engine pushing in the aft. They will have a magnificent view of the Earth, a black sky in daylight, and they will experiment weightlessness for 3 minutes in a row. But it will still be reserved for privileged people, very rich people. Now, to finish, I want you to listen to it's a series that I liked a lot when I was a teenager, and which closed the loop with the first speech you heard from John Kennedy.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
This is exactly what we do at the European Space Agency. We design, we build, we certify, we launch, we operate, we remote control space probes to explore strange new worlds. You know that the human-made space probe that has landed the furthest from the Earth is a European probe. It's called Huygens. It has landed on Titan. Titan is a satellite of Saturn, which has the size of the Earth, which has an atmosphere. And it has landed with a precision of 1 kilometer at a distance of 1.4 billion kilometers from here. And we have now we have Mars Express. We have a space probe around Mars, around Venus. We will launch soon one to study Mercury. Some others are also have started, are in development to study Pluto. And we seek life. We seek traces of life on Mars and also on other planets of other solar systems. So I like this word of Captain Kirk, our mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life, new civilizations, and to boldly go where no one, before they say no man, now we say no one has gone before. So I wish you all, especially the young, to find your destination where nobody has gone before so that you can make the difference, you can help increase the knowledge in our society, the knowledge of who we are, where we come from, where we are going, how the universe works, how the Earth as a spaceship works, because the better we know, the more likely we can survive and help our children, grandchildren to have a good life. Thank you.